Good morning and welcome to River Tree. We're glad that you're with us. And today, Pastor Brian is going to have us take a look at some of those people who did significant things. Like they mattered for eternity, but their names weren't recorded. And to me, that's a reminder how sometimes we'll do things that matter for eternity, but people won't notice, yet God notices, because God knows each and every one of us, and He's not just aware of us, He knows every detail about us. When I think about that, it brings such a peace to me. And it also inspires me to greater levels of awe for this mighty God that we serve. And it reminds me of what the psalmist writes in Psalm 139. So would you even begin to tune your hearts to praise as I read these truths from this passage? You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in, behind and before me, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Would you pray with me? Father, the fact that you know everything about us, you even know us better than we know ourselves, that is so wonderful. Who are we, God, that you are so mindful of us, that you're so attentive to us, that you are so watchful over us. Father, many of us today may be going through some things and we're wondering, do you know what we're going through? Do you care? And I pray that these truths would settle our questions and help us trust you and lean into you during these confusing times. But Lord, I have to admit too that the idea that you know everything about us and you see everything we do and you're aware of everything we think, Lord, that's a bit scary too, because then you also know where we've fallen short this week. You know where we have sinned. I pray that this truth, though, wouldn't cause us to try to hide from you or run from you, but would cause us to run to you and actually open up our hearts and minds to the searching of your Spirit. Father, please show us where we have fallen short. And then give us the grace to turn that over to you, to turn away from self and turn to you, God, so that you can lead us in the way everlasting. Because, God, you do not convict in order to condemn us. You convict us in order to get us on the path of freedom, in order to get us on the path that you have charted for us. So God, I pray that'd be our response today. And then also prepare our heart and minds for anything else you have in store in our time together. I pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my turn till I made. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my turn, yeah, till I made. You called my name and I ran out of that to your heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan. Now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open. 'Cause when you call my name, shout it, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. Oh, come on, hey.
Well, good morning and welcome to River Tree. We're so glad you decided to join us. And especially if you're a guest, we're thrilled that you're here. And we would love it if you would let us know that you've connected with us. You can do that a couple ways. You can do that via our website, wearerivertree.com. And you scroll down, there's one of the first big buttons, I'm new to River Tree. If you click on that, fill it out. One of our pastors will reach out to you this week. Plus, we have a thank you gift for your taking that time. Or if you're with us in person, you can stop out at the Welcome Center. And if you fill out the form there, we have some fun take-home gifts for you as well. We'd appreciate it if you do that. I promise we won't be pushy or creepy, but we'd love to see if there's anything else we can do to encourage you. Now, a couple things I want to make sure are on your radar. Coming up next Sunday is Hitchcock Park Family Day. Now, I want to be clear here. This isn't a church-wide event. This is for our families who have kids in either Sprouts or in Grow. That being said, if that pertains to you and you have some friends that you'd like to invite to this, go for it. The food starts at 5 p.m. and the fun in the water park starts at 6 p.m. And there's going to be free play. There's also going to be some really fun organized events going on as well. I'm just bummed that I'm not going to get to be there this time and defend my Cannonball title. Also, something else that's coming up that's going to be really exciting for our kids. In just a few weeks, it's going to be time for Making Waves VBS. That's going to go from Sunday, July 31st through Wednesday night, August 3rd. It's going to run from 6 to 8 p.m. each night. And this is for kids who are pre-K through our Grow Kids, which is up through 5th grade. If you want your kids to grow in their faith while having a ton of fun, get them there for Making Waves. And registration is open now. You can register now by using your phones and the QR code in your bulletin or the big one that's up on the screen right now. Just view that with the phone or the camera app on your phone, and the link should pop up for you to follow. Or we have registration tables in the lobby today, and you can stop there and get the ball rolling. Now, for a moment, I just would want to speak to you parents who are going to have kids going to this. I totally get it how on one hand, it is so appealing to think of, yes, we can have our kids go there and we get 4 date nights to ourselves. It'd be awesome. And you do need to get those date nights. But I want to challenge you to consider serving with Making Waves at VBS. It takes a ton of volunteers to make that happen. And I'll tell you this, your kids' experience will go to the next level if you're there with them. You will build some mutual memories together of growing in your faith as a family. And that's something that 10, 20 years down the road, you will be so thankful for. So if you're interested in serving with Making Waves VBS, you can stop on by the registration table as well. Lastly, I want to talk about giving. God has been doing some amazing things in the life of our church over the summer with youth mission trips and with camps going on and dinners for 8. That doesn't happen without your giving and your support. So if it's on your heart today to honor God and you want to invest in His kingdom, a great way to do that would be to give to River Tree Church. And there's a couple ways you can do that. You can do that via our website, wearerivertree.com. Just click on the Giving tab, and it's real simple to do it that way. Or if you're in person with us, You can give via the offering boxes that are by the exits when you leave, or you can give via texting 605-655-2996. Thank you.
Good morning, River Tree. I'm Pastor Brian. That's Brian with a Y. My parents thought that by using a Y instead of an I in my name, that it would be hip and trendy, at least as hip and trendy as you can be in 1962. But evidently so did the parents of the other Brians with a Y in my high school. There were several of us, and I guess we were all pretty hip and trendy. But I wanted to talk today about names, and names are important. And personally, I've been called lots of names in my short amount of time here on earth. I'm not going to share all of them with you in this setting. You're just going to have to trust me on that. But there's a lot of characters in the Bible that we don't know. And their stories are fabulous, and their stories change the direction of the world. But we just don't know their names. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And, you know, Ancestry.com really does intrigue me. I've never tried it, but I just think it would be really cool to know your ancestors and where you came from. And you know, if you ever had any desire to run for public office, it would just be really cool to have on your resume that you're the great-great-grandson of George Washington. You know, that'd be pretty awesome, wouldn't it? But I've titled this series Unknown because if you've been in the Bible for a while, you realize that there's some really good stories in there and really good lessons to learn. But the people, we know the people, but we don't know their names. And they may be famous, but they are not known. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And you know, the Bible identifies people sometimes by their status and you know who they are, like Pharaoh instead of the name, and a Canaanite man or a Samaritan woman. But there's some cases where we do hear the names of some minor characters, like Simon of Cyrene when he had to carry Jesus' cross, and Zacchaeus the tax collector when Jesus was invited to his house for supper. And you know, Zacchaeus, he even got his own song. I mean, we all know Zacchaeus was a wee little man, right? So how do some people get songs written about them, and some people are not even mentioned in their name, in their proper name? And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. And I'm assuming that it's mostly, you know, because the characters were probably just unknown to the writers and the scribes of the day. And that could be a reason. It could be that they simply encountered Jesus and went on their way without, you know, ever having said their name. And so nobody really knew. Or could it be that the writers of the gospel intentionally left the names out? And I'm going to discuss that a little bit at the end. So we're going to start this two-part series by learning about several different Bible figures who are mentioned, but never mentioned by their proper name. And I'm going to start out with the king of Egypt, and they call him Pharaoh, and we don't know his proper name. We just know him by his title. And we're going to talk about his daughter, and we know her as Pharaoh's daughter. We don't know her proper name either. And we're going to start in Exodus chapter 2. And it tells a wonderful story for us about when Moses was an infant, and he was floating helplessly in a basket down the Nile River. He was rescued by the Pharaoh's daughter while she was bathing. And the woman is not named. Pharaoh's daughter is not named in the Bible, despite the fact that she turns out to be a very important player. She becomes Moses' adoptive mother, and thereby saving his life. And most of us know that Moses grew up, and when he grew up, he freed his people from slavery. And then on their escape, he parted the Red Sea, and the Bible says they crossed on dry land. And then the sea came crashing back on their enemy. And eventually he brought us the 10 Commandments directly from God himself. And, I just, would that have happened without Moses? Or who would have done it without Moses? But first, let's read about Moses' birth. And we read about that in Exodus 2, verses 1 through 10. And I want you to notice that in these verses, there are no names. It says, "Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levi woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. And when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a paper basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the banks on the river Nile. Her sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. 'This is one of the Hebrew babies,' she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, 'Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?' 'Yes, go,' she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother, and they took the baby and nursed him. And when the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, 'I drew him out of the water.'" And now it's very clear that God really was at work here through all these circumstances. You see, Pharaoh had ordered that all male Hebrew babies be killed at birth because the Jewish people were multiplying at a very fast rate, and he was scared that they would outgrow and outnumber him, and that they would rebel out of slavery, and that they would turn and conquer him, and then he would be the slave. So he ordered all these male babies to be killed. And the real mother of Moses, who is not named in this text, but she is named later in a list of genealogy. But she, she orchestrated this so that Pharaoh's daughter would find her son and then hopefully raise him as her own son. And that's what happened. And so, he ordered that these male babies be killed. And now this Egyptian woman, she is the daughter of the man who ordered the murder of these babies. And there was an unknown number of innocent babies, and her name is never given. Yet she is the reason that the Israelite people survived. And without her, Moses probably would have died in the Nile, or he would have been, worst case scenario, raised outside of Pharaoh's household and raised as a slave. And without Moses, it's unclear whether the Israelite people would have managed to escape slavery. There's no way of knowing if they would have perished before they reached freedom. And Moses is the center of this story, but it's just hard for me to understand why they wouldn't mention Pharaoh's daughter's name. And then we have a story about the forgiven adulteress. And this is one of the most well-known stories in the New Testament. It's the tale of a woman who's brought before Jesus, and she's accused of adultery. And Jesus is questioned by the Pharisees about what to do with this woman who was caught in the act of adultery. And the Pharisees go on to point out that the law in Moses commanded the Israelites to stone such women. And the Pharisees ask Jesus what he thinks they should do. And the question, like many of the inquiries that were directed at Jesus at that time, they were trying to trap him so that they could have a basis for accusing him and getting rid of him. And Christ gave one of his most famous responses, and even non-Christians, a lot of non-Christians know this response and use it. And Christ says to the Pharisees that are trying to accuse this woman, he says, "Let the one among you who is without sin be the first to cast a stone. And guess what? No one can bring themselves to throw a stone. And Jesus is left alone with this woman, and he forgives her. And for all the fame of this story, I think the actual importance of this tale, of this story, is somewhat lost in the New Testament. Because when dealing with the adulteress, Jesus doesn't argue. He doesn't argue whether the law was right or wrong, like the Pharisees wanted. Instead, he forced the Pharisees to examine themselves and to consider if they had any right to condemn another human being. And in this moment, when the woman who committed adultery, when she cannot be accused by the religious leaders, because Jesus forced the religious leaders to examine their own lives, we witness something here that's pretty spectacular. We witness Jesus firmly switching his teachings away from the reciprocity, the reciprocal style of justice. The eye for an eye that we see in the Old Testament, we see that being pushed aside. And we see the grace and the mercy that Jesus gives in the New Testament. I think that's a very powerful lesson here that often gets overlooked. And then we see the wise men who come to worship baby Jesus. And they're called the Magi. And the Magi were often referred to as kings, and the three kings who traveled to worship Jesus. And they crossed great distances to find him, and they simply wanted to show him honor. And in doing so, they happened to run across Herod the Great, who was in charge of the land at that time. And he was immediately fearful of Christ, and he wanted Christ destroyed, even as a baby, because he feared that this new Messiah would come and take his place and take his power. And had the Magi not gone to seek Jesus, Herod might not have even found out about Christ until he was much older. And the Magi, of course, meant no harm to Christ. They were there to honor him, and so they were wise enough on the way out to avoid Herod and not disclose where Jesus was. And the odds are that the Magi were probably not actual kings. Instead, they probably would have been ancient astronomers or mathematicians. But they did notice that these unusual events were happening in the sky. They were among the first to meet Jesus. And I don't think it's any accident that the first people to meet Jesus were not Jewish. They were foreigners, and they were scientists. And from the very beginning, Jesus was the Lord of all nations. He was sent to the Jews. But when he came to earth, even those who didn't know the Old Testament prophecies, even those who had never heard of a coming Messiah, they knew by the stars in the sky that something extraordinary had happened. And the unnamed Magi, I believe, were an early clue, a foreshadowing of sorts, that the Gentiles would find their way into the story of the saving grace of Jesus Christ. And then we have the Canaanite woman. And everyone today knows that Christ spoke and saved both Jews and Gentiles when he walked the earth. But what some people forget, however, is that he originally preached only to the Jews. It was not until later that he began preaching to the Gentiles as well. And we can read about this in Matthew chapter 15. And this is one of the first times that he talked with a Gentile. And it's a Canaanite woman. And she recognizes Jesus, and she knows who he says he is. And she begs Jesus to save her daughter. And her daughter is filled with demons. And Jesus, however, he refuses. And he tells her that He was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. And then he continues on and says, it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. That sounds really harsh. But the Canaanite woman, she not only was not deterred, she agreed. She agreed with Jesus. And then she pointed out that even the dogs get the crumbs that fall off of the master's table. And the story ends with Jesus commending the woman, not condemning her, but commending her and her faith, and he heals her daughter. And again, I think this story of the faithful Canaanite woman often gets overlooked as simply another miracle story. But it actually has a much deeper meaning. The Canaanite woman is one of the first Gentiles to truly believe in Jesus. And it's through her that the process of converting the Gentiles to Christianity has begun. And it is with her that Christ first truly begins to reach out to non-Jewish people. And then we see the Samaritan woman at the well, and we can read about that in John chapter 4. And this Samaritan woman was privileged to have a heart-to-heart talk with Jesus. He knew everything about her, and she was a bit shy about talking with Jesus because Jews did not associate with Samaritans. And the woman, she was completely honest when asked by Jesus about her marital status. She admitted that she did not have a husband. And the story goes something like this. It was in the heat of the afternoon. Jesus was tired. He was thirsty. He had been on a long journey. And he sat down at the well, but he didn't have a pail or a rope to draw water. And then along comes this Samaritan woman. She was about to draw water from the well, and we need to understand that this event is not normal. No one would ever fetch water from the well at noon. It's just too hot outside. Most women would fetch water in the early morning, and the reason why this Samaritan woman did it at noon is because she really didn't want to be seen. Why didn't she want to be seen? She had a bad reputation as somebody who would, shall we say, have multiple relationships with many different men. And as the story progresses, Jesus tells her that he is the living water. And if she would simply drink this living water from his cup, that she would never thirst again. And the Samaritan woman, she humbly asks Jesus for this holy water, this living water. And she knows that something in her life has to change. And in Luke 21, we learn about the widow's mite. And it amazes me because it's just 4 simple verses. The story of the widow's mite is simple and short. Yet she portrays how people should give their tithes and offerings. She quietly gave 2 very small copper coins into the temple offering. And for the record, the 2 coins that she gave, it was equal to about 1.50 pennies each. And in today's market, in the coin market today, even in great shape, these coins are worth maybe $50 just for their historical value. They're not rare, they're not worth much. But the rich people of that day were being very arrogant. They were throwing their money in the offering, they were throwing it in with force, they were making it loud so that they would draw attention to themselves and try to give themselves glory for all the money they were giving. But Jesus knew that the widow gave all that she had, while the others were giving out of their abundance. And I believe this story, again, is something different. I believe it goes way beyond money. I think we need to ask ourselves, are we giving all of our time and talents to the glory of God? Or does God get the leftovers of our time as well? Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone goes into full-time ministry, but what I am suggesting that is if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, then you should do all things to the glory and for the glory of Jesus Christ, for the sake of his name. And I believe in the priesthood of believers, that if you are a follower of Christ, yeah, you're in full-time ministry. Are we giving God all of our time and all of our talents? And then we read about the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. It's in John chapter 6. This little boy made the feeding of the 5,000 possible. He's mentioned in just one verse out of 14. He's introduced to us by Peter. And the story starts when a huge crowd begins following Jesus, because he was known to heal the sick and perform miracles. And then Jesus and his disciples started to wonder about all these people. They'd been here a long time, and how are they going to eat? And there's no way that we could buy enough bread for all of these people to feed them. But as we read on, I think we start to see that Jesus might have had something else in mind, something he might wanted to teach his disciples. Could it be that Jesus knew there was just a little boy who was dying to give his lunch away? Maybe. We don't really know. But this boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish, he helped Jesus in hosting one of the most well-known, one of the most amazing buffets ever recorded. They fed over 5,000 people that day with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. And just like the lady in the last story, the little boy gave everything he had to Jesus when Jesus asked. Not half, not 3/4, all, everything. And the story goes on to say that Jesus blessed this food. And then he told the disciples to hand it out. And they kept handing and handing and handing. And the baskets never ran out. And they fed all 5,000 plus people that were present. And then guess what happened? Jesus told them to clean up afterwards. And when they were done, the Bible says that they were all full. They were full. And they picked up more scraps than what they had originally started out with. Everything is possible with God. Is God good or what? And the Bible is overflowing with many of these different stories of nameless people. And some of the most important people are left unnamed. They are unknown. They may have simply been background characters who symbolize something that may have become important later on. I don't know. But these unnamed, unknown people, they determined and they changed the entire course of history. And I want you to know that we can too. We just simply have to say yes to God. And we can be one of those world changers as well. And the first takeaway I want you to understand today is that amazing things can happen if you don't care who gets the credit. If you focus on God getting the glory instead of you, amazing things will happen through you. And the second takeaway is amazing things can happen if you give God your all. Not just your leftovers, but all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your strength. You know, it is possible that the authors of the gospel sometimes used the deletion of names as a way to invite the readers, to invite us into the gospel story so that we can identify with them and we can encounter Jesus Christ by putting ourselves in the place of these unnamed, unknown characters. Who are you today in God's story? Who are you in God's story? Are you the Pharaoh's daughter who did the right thing even though she disobeyed her father's evil orders? Are you the sinful adulteress? Are you one of the accusers? Do you need to examine your own life before you continue chastising others? Are you the Magi who simply came to praise and worship and honor God? Are you one of the wise men who had critical thinking skills to not tell Herod where the baby Jesus was? Are you the Canaanite woman who believed and had faith in Jesus and received a miracle? Are you the woman at the well? Do you need forgiveness and compassion and understanding today? Do you need what Jesus has to offer? Are you broke and desperate like the old widow? Are you willing to give everything to Jesus today? Are you like the little boy with the sack lunch who enthusiastically gave everything that he had? Or do you feel unknown by Christ today? If you do, wouldn't you like to be known as a child of God? You can go to rivertree.com, click on the I Want to Be Known button, fill out a few simple questions, and I will be in touch with you this coming week. I pray that you will no longer want to be unknown, but you will want to be known as a child of God. Call me, email me, go to Rivertree, wearerivertree.com. I would love to talk to you about who you are in God's story. Be blessed, everybody.